Hello and welcome back to the AL Central Rundown. I'm Eric, and with me today is Dan and Lee. Sam, I guess, had his sister was married yesterday, so I guess he gets a pass for today. He'll be back next week. So today is really the World Series is going on. It was a blowout in Game One, and then not a blowout in Game Two. It just sounds like what Yamamoto just shut down the Blue Jays, like a career-defining performance. So what do you do? 1-1 in the World Series. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I really,
It really
I've
has.
had it.
It's been a juxtaposition of two games. I feel like Toronto was riding high after game one. Like you said, a landslide victory, and then just Yamamoto was brilliant last night to shut them down. So, um, if you're LA, you probably got to feel pretty good that you at least got one in Toronto, and you're going to
Yeah.
go home and potentially end the series now. But I kind of go back and forth on how much home field really matters. So. I think it looked good for Toronto to have such a resounding victory to begin with, particularly with the narrative of this series being, oh, well, the Dodgers are just going to roll Toronto. They're just so talented. Well, we have a counterexample to that. And um, I don't know. You guys know who's pitching for Toronto in game three? I know Glass now is for the
No, but
Dodgers.
I'm pretty sure Scherzer is pitching Game 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Let me
Oh,
pull
it's
up.
probably Bieber then.
I was about to say Bieber came to mind, but
It's got to be.
No, Scherzer is
Um,
pitching Game 3, and Bieber is
okay.
Game 4.
before.
I
Oh
just
wait,
looked it
Interesting
Bieber
up.
with a
decision there.
mustache is a look.
It's rough. But yeah, so Scherzer against Glass now. I'd probably give the edge to Glass now, but if Scherzer can turn back the clock again, man, would that be fun.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's what's next.
Schneider will not be pulling him the first time he comes out there. I bet.
Well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how he's pitching. But
I feel like sometimes home field can be a disadvantage. Like, I feel like the Phillies' home field is like almost a more of a disadvantage than an advantage, it feels like.
It depends on
Essentially,
what
what
you
happens.
It depends on how you harness your adrenaline. Like I feel like if you're a young team, it can like either bring you to a new level or it's gonna make you so nervous you're gonna like whatever. But like I don't know.
I mean, there is a
Home
thing where like the Astros haven't won a home game in 7 straight home playoff games
oh
or
wow.
whatever. Yeah, it's
Um,
really weird.
it's weird because the one thing, the one way that baseball, other than the other sports, actually does have a home field advantage is you literally get to hit last. You know how many
yes.
runs you need to score in order to win the game. So there is a natural advantage, more so than just, well, the crowd in other sports. So there is something there. And I think home teams win 54% of games.
Something like that.
So there is maybe a tiny bit, but
Yeah,
again,
like it's
at
it's
this
the
at
same.
this level, how much does it matter?
I think
It's
Savant I think Baseball Savant starts the game at like 51% for the home team.
Does
Like
it?
if you look at their win
Slight
probability to it,
edge.
like literally before a first pitch, they'll put the home team at like 51% or something like that. So anyway, um, should be fun. I'm going. I think we're all going for the Blue Jays. Dan certainly is. Uh,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. The Dodgers. I don't think are a team that needs to be hated, but like I don't know. They won it last year. They won it in 2020, and it's time. It's the Blue Jays' time, but we'll see. What we're gonna do today is we're trying something pretty different. I wanted to do a off-season preview for all the teams, and we made a spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet was great, but there's actually a really great video game that's called Outside the Park Baseball or Out of the Park Baseball. It's if you're a baseball nerd and you haven't played it, it's an Excel sheet with just enough video game to keep you hooked. It has
it's
40-man rosters. It puts you in the seat of a GM. It's great.
it's
So
affectionately known as spreadsheets the game.
yes, and
And one thing I enjoy about not to, we're doing kind of an OTP commercial right now, but like you can do historical leagues. I do historical leagues on there.
yep.
I go back to playing like the 80s and stuff, but you can do fictional, you can make up leagues and all kinds of crazy. People make like if you ever go on their forum, people make like whole entire worlds and stuff to
Yep.
relate to their teams. But it's a really fun, immersive game for how simplistic it is, really.
It has I mean it uses like the 80-20 chart or stars. Like it is it goes back to like 1870. You can play seasons back, bring up through Babe Ruth. All like Dan was just saying, like it's true. If you're a baseball nerd, you need to play this game. It's typically like $40 when it starts off. I think it's on sale now.
Yeah, for the duration
But
of the World Series.
I've been playing it for a couple of years, and I mean, I've put hundreds of hours in these stupid simulations. So, including one, I'm doing a
Yeah.
Byron Buxton redo because when he
Nice.
came with the Twins, and I'm just
That's
redoing his career without injuries. And wouldn't you know, he's pretty good. Who would have thought?
I am bad at this game. I I cannot figure it out. I'm gonna try to because I got 26 now.
Well, here's a bit of a tutorial. So anyway,
Yeah.
what we're gonna do. I'm gonna turn on the screen here. I simulated an entire season that didn't matter, and then I just brought the rosters current or as current I could for the Twins, and we're gonna do the Twins and the Guardians today. We can talk about payroll, 40-man roster, who we think's gonna be on, and OOTP is really good because it has all of these stuff kind of like harnessed and like it can show a pretty wide range of what we want to talk about. So these might not be completely accurate, but like it's pretty accurate. I think it was just kind of a fun idea anyway. So we can get started. So I have to go completely off of the screen because it's going to take up everything. So hopefully what I say is going to make sense. But oh, the 2026 Minnesota Twins. We can ignore this record. This was from the fictional league that they just did. By the way, the Guardians finished fourth. It makes no sense. They win the division in real life. They lost the division. They were fourth in the division. We talked about that briefly before we went on air. Projection systems just don't like the Guardians. Apparently, they like the Twins' decimated roster better to be a 76-win team.
Did they have the Royals win the division? Because I feel like
Nope.
it likes the Royals.
No, they had the Tigers. If I go to
Really?
I could go to the playoff tree, but the Tigers won the division as the sole representative for the Central. Any guesses on what the World Series matchup is? Because you won't get it.
Orioles and I don't know. I can't think of who would be on.
You
the
got the
next
hard
place.
one. How did you get the Orioles?
Because I feel like everyone that was a wild guess because like I feel like everyone expected the Orioles to be really good this year. And then they just weren't.
Game 7 of the World Series, the Chicago Cubs beat the Baltimore Orioles.
Ah,
So
that's
good
a
for them.
wild guess on my part.
It was a
So-
good guess. You had the right kind of mindset. That was a team that people were expecting big things from this year. So.
They just plummeted. So the Minnesota Twins going into this offseason. This financial screen is really I just set up for the payroll. With the payroll, I have no idea what the Twins are going to do. It's kind of like that Choose Your Own Adventure book we had when we were younger. The Twins can jump to page 42, whereas the scenario where they have a 2023 payroll of 160 million, except for those pages have probably been ripped out by the poll ads, so that's not going to happen. They could have a payroll like it was at the end of this last season, which was 120 million, or we could go with the two other options. One where I think they're going to have a $95 million payroll, and then I actually think not my favorite, but the most likely is their payroll is going to be around $70 million. This screen is just kind of showing that. The salaries going into this season, we're looking at 2026 here. There are two guaranteed contracts for the Minnesota Twins. Pablo Lopez making 21 and basically $22 million, and Byron Buxton making 15.1. Byron Buxton has a no trade contract, no trade clause in his contract. He's very he's said pretty adamantly, he's not going anywhere. He is a Twin for life, and I have a feeling the Minnesota Twins are going to challenge that as much as they can, but we'll see.
I thought Buxton was getting more, to be honest.
Nope, he signed this right after the last time the Twins had a blow up at the trade deadline. He signed a 7-year extension in the offseason of 2022, and that was when he was obviously he's been very injured. So they basically took the percentage of games he had been playing, took his value of a season of those games, and then figured out a salary from there. So they basically got him for half off of what he would have gotten on the open market. Certainly he is worth more than $15 million this year. One of the reasons he took that salary is, one, he didn't want to probably deal with free agency and like his injury history. He was teammates with Carlos Correa, who went through his own fiasco with his medicals. So I think he liked Minnesota. He chose to sign a team friendly deal, went from there. Pablo Lopez. If you want to say there's an outlier contract on this team, it's Pablo. He's probably their best pitcher all around. You can take this overall OOTP. He's a 55 graded pitcher on the game out of 80. So pretty good all-star caliber starter. He has, honestly, probably a market value, like a fair market value contract. He is probably worth a little bit more. If he was going to sign a free agent deal this year, he's probably going to get 5 or 6 years around the 25 million mark. He's slightly below average, but on this team, that's a lot when their payroll is going to be about $95 million, which is why I think just moving him can bring them down to $75 million, and I don't see why they're going to keep him.
Am I right to say that that was not a contract he signed with the Twins? He was a trade, correct?
No, he did.
They inherited this contract from
No,
a trade.
get this. The Twins traded for him and then extended him.
Okay,
Oh.
I missed that part. All
When
right.
they traded, does anyone remember who he was traded for?
Luis Arise.
Yeah. Which trade
Fan
trading.
favorite, right?
Yes. I mean, that if anyone remembers when that happened, Pablo, his first month with the Twins, kind of struggled, and his second month he was brilliant. But Luis Arise that year for the Marlins won the batting crown, and I think, I'm not kidding, in April I think he hit 400.
Yeah.
And people in Minnesota were freaking out because Lopez had like a 4.75 ERA, and Arise was, being really exciting in Miami. So that right away was not a popular decision, but
I'll say this.
yep.
There's a reason why Arise has been traded multiple times.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's necessarily a character thing. That's not what I mean.
No,
But
he's very well liked. He just can't he's not a good defender, and he doesn't
it
hit
just
the power.
seems like he's a good player to have on your roster in theory.
Yes.
And then you get him and you
In
realize,
practice,
oh,
it just really doesn't work.
there's some cracks here. There's some, yeah.
And when the Twins traded him, they put him at second, but like he has shoddy knees to begin with. He wasn't a good defensive second baseman, so they put him to first, and he's like 3'8". He's not but particularly like I think he's incredibly smart. Like he was when he was on the Twins, he was probably one of their best base runners, even though he was one of their slowest runners. Like I think he has such a high baseball IQ. And then you just look at him taking in his bats. He can just almost, like what they used to say about Tony Gwynn. He can choose where he's going to hit the ball. It doesn't matter where you pitch it. He's going to put it where he wants. But once they put him to first base, then you're comparing him to other first basemen. And an 800 OPS first baseman is the standard. Luis Arraez has to do a lot to get to an 800 OPS. But still a good player. Wish he was on the Twins. Honestly, he's probably cheap enough now. The Twins basically have an opening at first base. I think he's going to be non-tendered, or if he's not a free agent for the Padres, we could see Luis back. That would be fun. But we'll see. Try making the Pablo Lopez trade for Arise today. I don't think anyone will pick up the phone. So.
I feel like in today's game, you need to have 2 of 3 things to be viewed as like a valuable player: on base, slug, or defense. You gotta have 2 of the 3. You can't get by with just you get on base all the time.
Interesting about Arise also is he doesn't walk a lot. He has such elite contact skills, and he will foul balls off. And then he controls the strike zone. But if you throw him a strike, he'll just slap it for a single. Like he really doesn't ever get to 2 strikes or to 3 balls. He just hits the first pitch.
He's not patient. Yeah, he doesn't work a count in a way.
Yeah. So, anyway, I liked Arise. I have his T-shirt jersey. He was another one of the cursed Twins players. I get their jersey and then they get traded away. I also have a Pablo Lopez sweatshirt, so see how that turns out.
It's a death.
Yep. So, you'll see this third contract. This player is no longer with the Minnesota Twins. He's also very overrated in this version versus what he is. But Carlos Correa has about $10 million or $30 million the Twins are going to be paying him for the rest of the guaranteed contract years. Really don't pay attention to the rest of his past 2027 because those are team options. that the Astros can pick up. So the Twins just sent $30 million to not play Carlos Correa. I'm going to guess his $10 million ghost is going to be the second highest salary on the team, which is a statement.
Yeah, that's not what you want. You don't
No.
want your second highest paid player to be a guy who's not on your team.
Who's not on your team? Yeah, it's great.
Actively competing against you.
So the rest, they have a lot of minimum salary guys. I do want to just bring up the screen. Let's go to salary arbitration. Let's go to the Minnesota Twins because their arbitration is actually pretty... Nope, I want to go back to... Okay, well, this is where doing an on-air meeting here. Give me other human act as none. Sorry, everyone. We're going back here. Manager's office. Offseason center. I want arbitration. Oh, I got rid of. Here we go. Nope. Okay, it really just wants to mess with me. We're just going back to the salary screen. The arbitration numbers are, for the Twins, are most of the starters. So this really should make you sad if you're a Twins fan because you have some promising names. You have Ryan Jeffers, who has been a solid starting catcher. I don't think he's all-star level, but he's definitely he's a solid, good hitting catcher. Poor defensive catcher. He's getting to be 28 years old. He has 1 year left before he goes to free agency. Who knows what they're going to do with him? It really depends on what the Twins front office thinks that they're going to do with this team. If they don't think they're going to be competitive, which they probably should believe they're not going to be competitive, if the payroll sticks at $95 million, you can probably look to trade Jeffers, who's probably going to make around $6.5 million in arbitration. Joe Ryan probably cost himself a couple $1,000,000 going into like in the last half of the season. He really struggled in September. He was projected to make like $8.5 million and then just I think had like a 4.5 ERA for his last 6 starts, so that didn't help him out there. Bailey Ober has been solid except for this year. He was dealing with some hip issues. He's 6'10", 6'10" dude with a hip issue, and especially they already struggle with mechanics. He was one of the Twins' first success stories for like increased velocity. Now, if you're 6'10", have hip issues, and your mechanics are off because of that hip issue, it can be real tricky. It should be a real question mark if he can get back to doing that. We'll see. The first real like question the Twins have, to me, on if they're going to keep him is Trevor Larnach, who was part of that first wave, this wave of prospects that has just flamed out. Larnach is this 6'4", 225-pound dude who looks like he can hit the ball 500 feet, and occasionally he does. The difference is he's a poor defending left fielder that has like a 99 OPS plus for his career. 28 years old. What can you really do? Like, you can... A 99 OPS plus is fine, but when you're a poor defensive left fielder in a position where you need to hit significantly better than that, might be a cut. So he might be a $4 million cut from there. Royce Lewis, they're going to keep. He's going to cost about $3 million. What a fall this guy has had. He played better in the second half. Who really knows what he's going to do? Easy cut next is Jose Miranda. Completely fell off the face of the earth. He was demoted in April, will probably never play Major League Baseball again. He hit, I believe, I think in the 660s. He was one of the worst AAA players in baseball when he was demoted. He is probably... Yeah, he's done. Then you have what's left of the bullpen. Let's just go talk about this bullpen, because honestly, if you're going to keep Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez, and I have them listed here on this side, Bailey Ober. Simeon Wood Richardson actually had a pretty nice year. He's I say he had a nice year. He had an okay year. He has been, I think his ERA plus was like 104, which is for a fifth starter. That's great. I don't know how much more you can ask for that, somebody with his ceiling, especially with how much he struggled. But this is where I honestly have no idea what the Twins are going to do with their bullpen and their pitching staff. At the trade deadline, they traded for Taj Bradley and Mick Abel, two near MLB ready or MLB ready players. But Taj Bradley had already been in the majors for 3 or 4 years. Just hasn't clicked. I think we talked about it on the show a couple weeks ago that he, when he was with the Rays, wasn't paying attention to scouting reports, which was shocking to me at the time. He just hasn't clicked in the majors. If they can unlock something with Taj Bradley, he used to be a top like 50 worldwide prospect. But that was 3 years ago. How much you want to weigh on that? They traded him for Griffin Jacks. Taj Bradley, if he can't figure it out, probably going to the bullpen. Outside of that, Mick Abel traded for Duran. Probably, they're going to give him a chance to start. He's probably going to be in the bullpen also. He looked so bad for so long. He had one great start at the end of the year against the Phillies, and he has the stuff to do it. He can throw 100. He has a pretty good breaking ball. It's just for whatever reason he gets to the majors and he has just got crushed. The other two names that Twins fans should be familiar with, Zebby Matthews and David Festa. Pretty similar players, high velocity, borderline top 100 prospects this time last year. David Festa is flirting with thoracic outlet syndrome, which is never a good sign. That's just as scary as Tommy John, at least to me, if not scarier. And Zebby, for having a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and a decent slider, hasn't done much. He just hasn't been that good. So he could also be in the bullpen too. But those are 8 starters.
Before you move off of that, and I think maybe you were headed here. First of all, yeah, it's 8 starters. You're going to need depth. Every team needs depth. If you
Yeah.
have 5 starters, you don't have enough. So you at least have a pool of starters to pull from. My reaction to two of these guys, Taj Bradley, did he get hurt during his Twins tenure? Because he only had 6 starts, and the
Yeah,
ERA in those was 6.61, which
he
is
wasn't
hatred.
he wasn't called up right away. I think
That's right.
he had like
Yep,
2 or 3 starts in AAA. He did get hurt. I can't remember what the injury was, but he was out for a couple of weeks too. And when he did come up, I think he had like 2 short brutal starts. And then he had a run of like 3 or 4 starts where he was actually pretty good, swing and miss. And that was the comment of the Twins beat writers asked him what he had done differently,
okay.
and he said, "Oh, I just read the scouting report." So whatever.
And then the second, Mick Abel. So this is a very, very casual reaction. I haven't really deep dived into Mick Abel at any point in time, but I feel like he's been a prospect for a really long time. I've heard his name for a really long time. And the fact that I've heard his name for a really long time, and this is his first shot to get to the majors, and then his first shot to get to the majors didn't go so well,
Yeah.
that train's headed the wrong direction. That's my reaction to him in this point in time.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of him. I haven't paid attention to the Phillies farm system until recently when the Twins, traded 2 of their better players this year for him. You can see the tools. As a starter, he can pump it up to triple digits. He has this, I guess, the fastball velocity he has the velocity you want, and he does have a good off-speed pitch. But yeah, there's something. And when he's in AAA, I think he had like a sub-3 ERA. But the Phillies called him up this year to make his debut. He struggled. They sent him down. The Twins traded for him. Basically did the same thing. It's his first taste of the majors. I think you want to see a little bit more. He's 24 years old going into next year. You want to see if there's a chance he can be a starter, go ahead and leave him there. I also think if you're going to trade Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez, just put Mick Abel in the starting rotation. All right, what are we waiting for? See what you can do for 75.
This season could get weird. Let's just go ahead and try some of these guys and see what happens kind of situation for sure.
And I'm also going to guess, like, if Pablo and Joe get traded, you're going to have Bailey Ober and then a bunch of former near top 100 prospects that have improved themselves. I think the Twins, when you say get weird, I think that's exactly right. They're going to do a lot of piggyback starts. They're going to have a lot of 4 inning starts and then schedule in another starter. Like they're going to have Taj Bradley start the game, and then in the 5th inning they're going to bring in Mick Abel to do the next 4 innings. Like, and that just
Right.
might be the plan next year. Like
Time
because
to experiment. Might as
right,
well.
and like who knows what goods comes from that. That'll work out. That worked out really well because I did that with Pearson Ole and with Travis Adams this year. We were 2 relievers that aren't listed on here. They were not even real prospects, and they did that. Um, and they ended up getting to the majors. So like there is something to say like what happens with those fringe starter types that maybe shouldn't be stretched out to go 7 innings, but could go through a lineup once or twice.
Right.
Who knows? I mean, this if you believe that this tell me if I'm disagreeing with this. This pitching staff is doesn't look great on paper, but you can squint and look at the names. Now, again, they're the names they have to perform. You can look at the names and at least like the stuff they have, and you can squint and you can see a functional major league staff if you keep Lopez and Ryan.
There's bones
Yeah,
here.
Yes.
yeah. There's something there. It's just a lot of they haven't played in the majors much, so you don't really know what you have, but they could be.
So then you have the bullpen, which is obliterated. So I'm going to put, they have those 4 starters. 2 of the, like, 4 starters that for the last, like, spot, let's just say, put the rest of them in the bullpen. Like, there's no reason to put them down. They will, don't get me wrong, they will pull them down next year in AAA to start off the season. But to me, there's no need. You can keep these guys stretched out and let's see what Zebby Matthews can do when he's not stretched out to 6 innings. Like, let's see what he can do with 4. If he performs well, okay, then maybe put him in the actual rotation, see if he can do 5 or 6. But if he struggles, well, let's just see what Zebby can do, who can throw 100 miles an hour, start going for 6 innings. What can he do if he's just throwing for 2? Can he be the new Duran that throws 104 and it doesn't matter? Like, his fastball now becomes elite because it's 104? We'll see. The bullpen they have to figure out, though. So remember that point. You can look at this pitching staff and squint and see some potential. Now let's go to this lineup. Because, yeah, do you have a thought on that, Lee? Go ahead.
No, just on the bullpen, because like it's not going to matter if you can, out of your 8 starters, scrounge up 5 who can give you at least 5 innings, right? It's not going to matter if the bullpen's going to come in every time and it's going to give up 5 runs. I feel like that's what's going to
Correct.
happen.
Now I say that. Now remember that point because I'm going to bring around. So anyway, remember that point. But I agree with you 100%. But I'm going to come back to that point after I get done talking about the hitters, just as the team as a whole. But let's go to lineups. This lineup is not encouraging. You have Byron Buxton, an underperforming Trevor Larnach. I put Matt Wallner in the DH. Honestly, and they refused to do this. Matt Wallner had a disappointing year, and he still had an 800, like a near, I think it was like a, yeah, he still had an 810 OPS, and he had a disappointing year. He's not going in the direction you want to see. He had a lot of strikeouts. He had a lot of non-competitive at-bats. If you believe Matt Wallner is going to continue to go down that direction, you should probably trade him. He's still minimum salary, but like, what's the point? Like, they have a lot of corner outfielders coming up through that can kind of take their place, including Walker Jenkins, Emmanuel Rodriguez. To me, there's no reason to keep Matt Wallner in the outfield. And if you still feel like he's going to be a productive hitter, put him at DH. Or more importantly, the man is 6'4". Why can he not be playing first base? But yeah, the Twins have like refused at any point to put him at first base, and they've had such poor first base play in the last like 3 years. It makes like Trevor Larnach can play first, should be able to play first. Matt Wallner, they can just throw whoever the f they want. They threw Luis Arise out at first base. They threw Cody Clemens at first base. They threw Donovan Solano at first base. They've shown throw much garbage. Ty France at a position that you're just looking for offense, and they put these medium to light hitting position players to play the least important, not the least important, one of the least important defensive positions on the field. Why can
You
Matt
guys
Wallner
had
not?
you guys had a Gold Glover at first base 2 years ago, though.
You did. You'd have Carlos Santana, and he had a very good year, but that's an outlier.
Agreed. Sorry to poke holes. I think apparently though, because I'm looking at Ty France's Savant page right now, he was a 7-run fielding run value at first base. For whatever reason, the Twins
Hey,
care
that's
about first base
AL
defense.
Player of the Week Ty France to you. Put some respect on
The,
his
the
name.
the
Right.
point I'm making is, at least for the last 2 years, the Twins have said, we need a good defensive first baseman for whatever
Right.
reason, for right or for wrong.
And I couldn't tell you, like, to me, if you have a poor defensive first baseman, and they're certainly out there, especially like go look at any steroid era team, like none of those guys could play a good first base. Justin Morneau could. I'm not saying anyone could, but like you certainly had outliers. But why can you not just try Matt Wallner there? Like you need this offense is struggling, and you're putting a key offensive position and you're giving it to a 700 to 750 OPS guy when the standard is probably closer to 800. You have an 800 OPS guy who's not a good corner outfielder, who is trending down in the an outfield defense. Why can you not just put him at first base? Why? Why not?
That's what gives you
Especially
to
when
try it.
most of your high minor league top prospects are corner outfielders. Like they're gonna have an influx of these guys. So it's very weird to me that they don't put Wallner or Larnick. But I put Wallner in the DH. I would personally put him at first. You can teach him over the offseason if he can play first. Or you can teach him the offseason to play first, but we'll see.
It's not that hard, Scott.
It's right. Tell him Wash.
Sorry.
Center
Dodgers are
fielder
bad.
Byron Buxton, the only above average bat consistently in this lineup. He's been great. Hope he continues to be great. I hope he's not punished for being loyal to the Twins. Left field, this could be a number of names. I put Alan Roden because they traded for him. They obviously do like him because he was one of the few players that was actually brought up instantly after the trade deadline that they traded for. Everyone else kind of got sent down to AAA, including James Outman, who they're going to be using as a backup outfielder. James Outman, I mean, don't pay attention to his rating here. He is not that good. I wish he was that good. I hope I'm wrong next year, but he's just not. Rodin is like a fringe. I mean, not a fringe. He was like a former, like, borderline top 100 prospect guy. Controls the strike zone, good defender, good athlete, all that good stuff. I will say, with whatever the Twins are trying to do, they want to be a more athletic, defensive based team. Because they have definitely not been a good defensive team in the last couple of years, or they at least haven't been like speedy and toolsy. They've had one of the slower lineups or rosters in baseball. And if you even think like if you think of the fastest positions they've had Carlos Correa, who's one of the shortest shortstops you'll find. A couple years ago, Jorge Polanco, who was an above-average runner, was at second. Not an above-average runner for second base. Outside of Byron Buxton, and like Willie Castro, and like they had Harrison Bader, they've had a lot of just like heavy-footed defenders. Royce Lewis used to be fast, probably an average runner right now. So Rodin is a signal that they're going to bring in more athletic guys and maybe be a more balanced offense. When before they were bringing in, heavy-footed defenders who were supposed to be able to hit, 30 home runs a year, and then they just failed to hit. Look at Brooksley, Keishel. Keishel had a really nice year. Probably outside of Buxton, the only highlight, well, Joe Ryan, the only highlight, 2 war season, kind of like that gritty, just fun player to watch. He's also, this year, he came back from Tommy John surgery at the start of this year. He then, in his first week of major leagues, got hit in the forearm and broke his forearm. So he was out for like 6 weeks, and then he missed the last 2 weeks of the season because he had to have surgery on his thumb. Not a great start for your first major league season.
Average Twins player.
Yep, that's about right. It's par for the course, is what it is. Brooks Lee, I think he would be. I get less impressed with him every time. He had like 18 home runs, which I don't think anyone saw coming. Switch hitter, college kid, or college coach's son. Seems like an intelligent dude. He just, I don't know. He seemed like he would be a good super utility guy on a good team. But if he's your starting shortstop, I don't have a lot of hope. But I mean, I'm also maybe being a little bit too harsh on him. He's 24 years old. He has the tools. He does show some improvement, but we'll see what happens with him. Who else haven't I talked about? Cody Clemens right now is the starting first baseman. I talked about that over to death. But so that
Would
is, huh?
would they play Austin Martin at second? Can Keishel play first?
Yes, that's
It just
actually.
feels odd to me to play. We know who Cody Clemens is at this point. I
Mhm.
would consider playing Austin Martin at second and then Keishel at first so that you could get more of those young guys at bats more consistently. I
Yes.
imagine with a team like the Twins, there's going to be mix and match a lot anyway, but that's just something that I would consider.
Yes.
Because I like Martin from what I've seen of him.
If you've seen the best part of him. He was
Probably.
if anyone remembers the Jose Barrios trade from 2021, it was Austin Martin and Simeon Woods Richardson for Barrios. So Martin is kind of like we talked a lot about Luis Ariz. He's kind of like Luis Ariz diet, or he's more athletic. He's really not that good of a defender. Especially like they had him play shortstop long past anyone thought he would ever be a major league shortstop. Nobody ever thought he was going to be a major league shortstop, but they played him there until AAA, thinking he was a good enough athlete that he could go play center, left fielder, and then he gets to the majors playing those positions, and he just looked lost. And he of the last 2 months of the season played like actually took advantage of the opportunity. He
Mhm.
played like himself. He probably bought himself 2 or 3 more years, or at least another year or two of just being considered to be a role player. You could put him at second, and they have played Keishel at first. What last year in the minors when they knew he needed to have Tommy John like early in the 2024 season, but because he was a position player, they just said go play first. It's not going to affect your swing. We're going to play you until I think it was like mid-August, whatever the date was. You could play as long as you could, have the surgery, and still be ready for the next year. They played him out through that, so he didn't lose the entire year in
What
development.
is it possible that that decision was made also in such a way that he wouldn't get a year of service time? Like they played him up until he could get a year of service time
I think
potentially.
he's only 22 right now, and he was
Okay.
like, we're talking like double A. Like
Oh, okay. Never mind.
he was only
Never
like
mind.
drafted like 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, I don't think it was service time manipulation.
Gotcha.
Who knows? But that's not my read on it. Cody Clemens. I mean, Cody's fine. Cody in a better context, like Cody Clemens on the Tigers would have been a feel good story. And it's still a feel good story for the Twins, but like
I'm
Cody
not trying
Clemens
to
as your starting first baseman right now, I
I'm
don't
not
know.
trying to push him off the Twins roster. I'm just saying we're clearly going young here. Why I would consider playing Martin more and Clemens
Yeah.
less, just based off what we know about those two guys at this point in time.
So the reason, Sully, when you said with their bullpen being combustible, the point I wanted us to remember is this is the Twins roster as I think it's going to be with a $95 million payroll. And honestly, I think it's going to be closer to 75 because I don't think Pablo's going to be on this team next year. If they bring up the payroll to just what it was last year, you now have $30 million, 25, $30 million to spend on a couple of relievers and maybe a big bat or two. You can now look at that lineup and be like, okay, things have to go right, but you can squint at this roster and be like, maybe a 500 team. Once you get to that point, you then have, now a lot of things need to go right. You have Walker Jenkins, who's going to be ready for the majors, hopefully early next year. Emmanuel Rodriguez coming up. You might be able to accelerate this rebuild if you even want to put the payroll to $120 million. And let's not forget, they cut it from $160 million the year before that. If they would go back to $160 million, then yes, I feel good about this team. That's not going to happen. But I'm just saying, the roster as constructed, the bullpen especially, is not a competitive team. With $30 million to spend, you can get yourself a good reliever or two, and you can maybe put up a fight, but
That's fair.
I don't think they're going to.
That's the thing. You have to assume that they would add to that, but just as it stands, it's just...
Well, the thing is, what they're cutting, they have not came out and said they're cutting. $120 million would just be maintaining the payroll. Everyone is assuming that they're cutting to 90, and I'm assuming they're going to cut even farther than that. Because they also do have their minority owners coming in that aren't going to get sworn in, I think, until the middle of next month. Free agents will be signed before the Twins have their minor league, and then they keep talking about this $500 million debt that they need to pay back, which I think they've have it estimated like if you pay the minimum payment interest, if it's like 5%, it's like $40 million a year to keep that loan just alive. So that alone will hurt their payroll, but it's their fault that debt's on the books anyway. Any other thoughts on the Twins? I've depressed myself.
It's depressing. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a shell of a team, and it's not. I would love to tell you, like, yeah, they're going to have $30 million to spend, and they could maybe be competitive, but, like, who are we kidding? Like, they're going to go bare bones. They're going to be around the $70 million mark, $75 million mark, which then brings you to the Oakland A's. That brings you to the Pirates, the Marlins. That's the company we're keeping with, folks. Good job,
Right,
Minnesota.
I got one question for you. You mentioned Walker Jenkins. Are there any other prospects who have not debuted yet who might be making a debut and significant impact on the team next year?
Yes, Emmanuel Rodriguez, who's been a prospect with them for a while. I'm not as high as him as others, but he has a unique skill set. He's a very patient, power-hitting center fielder that's kind of speedy, but he's also like 5'10". Like, he just has like a weird combination of skills. He's a speedy, power-hitting, patient center fielder. I'm not as high because he has a high strikeout rate. Like, he looks like I'm not going to say Joey Gallo, but like kind of a Joey Gallo type. Not the arm, more athletic, but also Joey Gallo was also a much better athlete than I think people give him credit for.
Well, he's going to become a relief pitcher now.
I don't think that's going to be a thing. I think he said that.
I haven't seen any progress on that front.
And then they do have, he's in Double A. He almost got called up to Triple A. Kalen Culpepper, who was their first round pick in 2023, had an 800 OPS in Double A. Basically a year after he was drafted. He could make an impact too. They have a couple, and then the rest are just like relievers. But like, I guess what is discouraging about that is we just saw an entire generation of prospects go through the Twins system. Larnick, Wallner's probably their best success story. Royce Lewis is a shell of himself. Edward Julian was supposed to be promising. Jose Miranda was supposed to be promising. Like, they flopped. And even if you want to go extend further, Brooks Lee is not the hitter that was projected to be. Like, development is certainly a concern at this point, and if they're making the right moves or not. So I'd love to tell you those heroes, like the reinforcements are coming, but you have to trust that the Twins are doing the correct things with these prospects also.
And
that's how you ended up here in the first place, right?
Right.
Because those guys didn't work out the way you had hoped.
Right. Matt Wallner is a success, and Matt Wallner is probably a platoon. And 800 OPS is great, don't get me wrong. Like, that's certainly a needed hitter, but like, man, you just go down the names and you just think like, man, this was supposed to be like a division winning machine for the next 5 years, and it just, I mean, cutting the payroll certainly hurt that, but those players just didn't step up, regardless of what the payroll is, and that's what they were depending on.
Culpepper is a fantastic baseball name. It's very like 1910s baseball.
They have
name.
two of them now. There's
Ooh,
C.J. Culpepper, who's a pitcher in AAA, and you have Kalen Culpepper.
nice, very fun.
So, any other thoughts on the Twins? Anyone think they're finishing above fifth place? I don't.
No, I don't think so.
No,
Well,
I
you never know
really,
in
I
this
just,
sport, but
If you had to, so they had $30 million to spend. Are you spending it more? Are you spending most of that money on a bullpen or a bat?
pitching. So I feel like it's more of a, it's less of a gamble on your current lineup right now. But I feel like this pitching wise, there's just so much empty space where you just got nothing. If it makes
I
sense.
agree. I'd go pitching, and I'll even say there's maybe three or four guys in that bullpen that I think aren't terrible, actually, but
Right.
there's just not enough of them. Like you need another four at least
You need
relief
at
pitchers.
least
So,
one really good guy in the bullpen. You have no
and by the
good
way, if
guy.
you do trade Lopez and or Ryan, then you need starters too.
Yeah.
Like you just need guys that are going to be able to. You have so many innings in the season, you're going to have to
If
pitch, and you
if
don't
they
have the arm
trade
talent right now.
if they trade like Lopez, why they're trading Ryan? Like those to me, I almost like, why are
Tied
you
together.
keeping one over the other?
Yeah.
One is like a third of the price, but like you're not going to be competitive. In which case, if you're already trading those two, why are you keeping Trevor Larnach for $4.5 million? Why are you keeping Ryan Jeffers for a year? Like now you're looking at, and lastly, the catcher depth after Jeffers, frick, there's like nothing. Like just not even like a solid AAA catcher. Like they'd have to go sign out and not sign that. But like that's why I think like if Lopez is gone, you're they're gonna probably go down to a $70 million payroll and just sit there for a year or two.
If
Why?
you if we're assuming that you're gonna end up trading Lopez, what type of player would you want in return? Like what are you looking for?
Best value. If you're trading Lopez, this is then a long term full schedule rebuild. I don't care. Just give me the best value and the best player you think. Don't do what you did at the deadline and do like this half-assed building for the future like give yourself a higher ceiling if you're going to go for it.
Right. Don't worry about position or anything. Just get the best player available.
This is silly, but I kind of wonder how much of that was driven by the fact that they traded 11 players off their roster. So they needed to fill out a roster, so they couldn't just go get a guy in Double A that was really highly thought of. Like
That was what I was
whereas
thinking.
now if you're trading these two starters, you don't have to worry about filling 26 spots right now.
Right.
It
Tomorrow,
felt like
you know,
at a certain point they were doing trades to replace the pitching they had traded away.
Right.
Bradley.
Well, Griffin Jack's also added out. Like to me, if you look at it like face value, they traded a high caliber reliever for a young, promising, former top 50 pitching prospect. That's probably about what you would ask for. It just doesn't look like Bradley's it anymore. Like it just feel like you've seen he's not only just pitched he's pitched like 350 innings in the majors at a 4.2 ERA. And by the way, most of that is with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
Now the Twins have already gotten a good trade from like Joe Ryan was a AAA pitcher for the Rays. That is a true success story. If you can do that with the Rays, that's great. But like that seems more like an outlier than what you can expect.
And the biggest, I'd say the most prominent prospect you got of all those deals was Mick Abel, and I already kind of did my spiel on him. It just seems like it would have started going the right direction by now if he was really going to be
Right.
something.
Edward, so he was actually the second. Edward Taiit was a catching
Okay.
prospect. He's a very young, as I think in like high ed, they've been pushing him aggressively. Like he's the name. Abel was
Okay.
the second, but yes, I can agree with it. They
At least have the major league ready folks, he would be
Right.
the top
Well,
guy.
they're so they want because I think they still were fooling themselves into thinking they could compete going into next year, and I think they saw what they traded for and was like, "Ooh, I don't
Yeah.
think we can compete with this roster anymore." And oh, what's that? Was our payroll? We don't know yet. Okay, great, thanks. It's depressing. Do we want to talk about a less depressing team? You know, a good team that actually won the division, did exciting things.
Yeah, won the division.
That's it. Is that the entire? Lee, any comments?
No,
There's
you won the
somebody
division.
who's
Congratulations. So
a
for
fan of this
oh,
team, not a fan of a different team that didn't win the division when it looked like they were really going to for quite a while. So
how did that team that won the division do in the playoffs? You think they would like at least advance past the wild card round or something. Who do they play against? Do they
I
play
was sitting
against
there watching the World Series game last night, and I was watching, oh geez, Toronto's pitcher. I forget his name, but he gave up the home run in the seventh inning, and I went, and
Moreland.
it was a 2-1 lead. I'm like, well, geez, Stephen Vogt would probably be on his like fifth relief pitcher by now. So just
there
kind
was
of
a
depends on how you want to play it out.
there was a post
Yeah,
on the Tigers subreddit that was like, "What inning do you think AJ would have pulled Yamamoto?"
I just brief aside, not to just kind of do silly jokes, but like I was watching a separate podcast this week, and they were talking about somebody actually did a study on this. The guy is brilliant. He was like an astrophysicist at one point, but he did a study on relief pitchers do indeed in these kind of short series. The third time you see a reliever is when things start deviating in the hitter's favor. And that individual, this brilliant individual who posted this on social media a couple years ago, you know what? He was hired by a team. You know what team he was hired by? The Cleveland Guardians.
Oh, really?
And they have this guy working for them, and apparently they are not listening to him, at least not on this
I was
particular
about to
issue.
say, I'm picturing him in the corner, just like with these two crumpled like papers in his hand, like, "Ooh, I've told you this the whole
So
time."
for that story,
It's like
shout out to Locked On Guardians. That's where I heard that this week. But
it's like
yeah,
the meme
so
with the we're looking for suggestions, and then the third guy's like, "Why won't we just do this?" Thrown out the window.
yes, pretty much. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
so I'd like to talk about the Guardians if that's where we're headed.
Yes, let's do that because the Twins are depressing, and at least we can talk about a good baseball team.
There's a
Where do you
little
want to
bit
start?
of everything here. There's some happiness. There's some depression. There's a little bit of everything going on with the Guardians here. Um, I imagine we're starting with the payroll.
We can start wherever you would like.
We'll start with the payroll then. So I'm going to try to kind of follow the template you left for me, Eric. Um, in totality, the Guardians are going to have a significant chunk of payroll coming off of the books compared to where they were this past year. There are a number of guys, some of whom you saw, some of whom you didn't, that are going to be they're going to be shedding. Not pictured here, but I'll just name some names. Jacob Junis, Lane Thomas, Carlos Santana, played a good portion of the season for the Guardians. Uh, Shane Bieber didn't throw a pitch for them, but was getting paid. In totality, there's about $47 million that was on the opening day payroll for 2025 that is no longer going to be present um, when the season ends, or already has been gone because that player was traded off the roster at some point in time. All that said, there are some contracts, a few of them that are going to be present here. Most prominent, of course, is Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez is in many ways very similar to Byron Buxton. He's got a no trade clause. He wanted to, his interaction when contract talks were made a couple years ago was that he give me your best offer. I want to stay in Cleveland, and that's what ended up happening. He's going to be making about $21 million in 2026, far and away the most prominent contract that's
Is he the only
on the team.
guaranteed contract? Him and Hedges next year?
Tanner Bybee is as well. He signed an extension before this season started. So that 4.4 million that he'll be making in 2026 is accurate and true to form. And that is an extension that he is going to be on for several years. If I'm not mistaken, they bought out at least the first couple of years of his free agency.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess 2029. It looks like he has a pretty big jump,
Yeah,
assuming these are accurate, which OOTPs they're
could
hit
be.
and miss,
It's
but
at
for
least
the most
close.
part.
Hedges, as you alluded to, that contract is signed. They didn't even wait for the league year to end. He will be back in 2026 for a $4 million deal plus incentives. Guardians continue to believe that chemistry matters,
I was
and
about to say
that
he must
Hedges is.
be the nicest man in the world. Like he has to does he like bring pinatas to the clubhouse every day? Like what does Austin Hedges do?
So there's an
Cuz
interesting kind of debate there about, I've heard the narrative like, well, couldn't they just hire him as a coach, like, and get the same value? There's a conversation there around it's different hearing something from a peer as a player, as hearing it from another player. For years and years and years, this is a different sport, but the Miami Heat kept Udonis Haslem on the roster, even though he was only playing garbage time for a lot of those years at the end of his career, just because he was a good elder statesman and he was somebody the players respected. Hedges at least does. He's arguably one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. So he does provide value on the field as well. I'm not putting too much stake into it, but he did hit decently down the stretch. Was actually one of their better hitters when they kind of upticked in September. Um, so I do think the biggest part of that though is that they value chemistry so heavily.
yeah, I keep going so like he's 33 years old. I'm trying to find his real life stats in here, but it's eluding me. But if you are like a fringe major league player, I always think of like, does anyone remember Drew Butera?
Yeah.
I think he literally has like a -10 career war. He's a -10
Wow.
win player. But he had like a 15-year major league career as a backup for like the Twins, the Rockies, like just a bunch of other players. You have to be just such an outstanding leader slash clubhouse guy slash I don't know people you have dirty pictures of the GM that you're going to leak to the public on why your career is that long. But it just man, good for Austin Hedges. Like I'm not trying to crap on him or anything, but man, he must just bring a hell of a lot that we do not see.
So
Anyway,
moving off of Hedges though, beyond that, if I'm not mistaken, you have a bunch of arbitration guys after that fact. The most prominent of which is Stephen Kwan. Uh, MLB Trade Rumors uh, is a fantastic website that projects what arbitration numbers are going to be each year, and they've got him at $8.8 million for this upcoming year. As we saw at the trade deadline this past year, we are now getting into the part of his time with the Guardians where those kind of conversations are going to be considered as far as if he may be traded off this team. He is not a free agent after 2026. I believe he is after 2027.
yep.
And so there is still runway there. And it seems like while he was dangled at the deadline here in 2025, it was going to take a pretty penny in order to get him. The Guardians are reported to have turned down an offer that included Leo DeVries, who was like the third best prospect in all of baseball, in exchange for Stephen Kwan. The Padres would go on to trade DeVries for Mason Miller instead. Really, really, really good relief pitcher. But so yeah, he is being offered potentially, but it's really got to be a deal that would knock the Guardians' socks off. And as long as the Guardians remain competitive, as long as they are doing things like winning divisions and winning close to 90 games and on pace to do those sort of things, I'm of the mind now that why hold on to that guy as long as you can. Maybe you trade him as a rental in year 6, but generally speaking, and by the way, there is um, historical evidence to the fact that the Guardians are willing to do that at this point. Shane Bieber, his whole situation got derailed by the fact he needed Tommy John surgery, but they had Shane Bieber on the roster into his last year of control. He was pitching for the team, ready to go, and then he got hurt. Like they held on to him when they could have dealt him, and the reason they did, I presume, is because they felt like they were in a competitive situation. I think the same can be the case for Kwan. I don't see an extension happening. Um, it could, but at this point in time, I think Kwan is going to want to see what his fair market value is. Although I will say he isn't the most slam dunk case for a big contract. He did not have a
Yeah,
great
because he's
offensive season, and has been kind of hot and cold as a hitter. He is easily one of the best defensive players in the league for any position. But I don't, a guy of his profile isn't necessarily going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. Um,
Okay, this might be a weird comparison. I feel like Stephen Kwan is the player that people think Luis Arise is. Does that make sense?
he's
Yes.
no offense to Eric and his glowing review of Luis Ariz, but I think he's a better player than Luis
Yes.
Ariz.
Let
Yeah,
me,
that's my point.
so when and Dan, maybe this was more of a talking point in Minnesota, but like that was the direct comparison when because the year that Quan and Arise were in the division together, Arise has better contact skills, but he doesn't have the power. But yes, Quan is the better player. I think Arise has better contact skills, but you can't tell me that
I
Quan isn't more valuable.
I agree entirely. Arise is better at the thing that they're both known at being good at, which is
Yes,
he doesn't strike out. He's very good at, but Quan is a better defender, better base runner,
yes.
um,
He has more
Better
slightly
on
than
getting
better,
on base.
slightly better power hitter. Quan walks. When you brought up Arise not walking or not seeing, Quan will see pitches. There's a reason why he's leading off. So I do think he'll be on this roster to start 2026, potentially even longer than that. But I don't know that he'll be locked up for an extension to be
It is
determined. I would
interesting.
I would bet against it.
I'm just looking at his baseball reference page now because it looks like we'll have to see what he does next year, but it looks like his 2024 where he took like a step up in like slugging and on base and like and everything. It looks like that's like a because this year he kind of was basically the same as he was in 2023. So I'm wondering if 2024 might we're gonna look back on it and be like that was an outlier year. I don't know. It's
I mean,
just
it could be.
yeah
It's
it
very
could be.
strange. And I did a spiel on this show earlier this year about this, but he's a tiny guy. He's 5'8", maybe like 175. I just kind of think he breaks down over the course of 162. Like he'll hit great through May, and then it'll just kind of fall apart, and then he'll go on the IL, and then he'll look good for a while, and then it just. But at the same time, he's played well in the playoffs in the past too. So I don't know. He's a bit of an enigma offensively. The skills are there. We've seen him with our own eyes, but consistently putting it together for 162 isn't a given at this point.
By splits, his worst month in his career is August. Like he takes a significant step down in August, and then almost returns to form in September, October.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Other ARB guys to mention, some of which you'll see on the roster, some of which honestly you probably won't, at least not to start. Um, the next highest paid is probably going to be Ben Lively. Ben Lively was a great story for this team last year. They had signed him from Korea, and he had a really good year as a starting. He kind of got thrust into a starting rotation role that they didn't necessarily know that he was going to be prepared for. He would not pitch deep into games, but he would give you 4 to 5 really good innings. And he got hurt this year. He needed Tommy John surgery. We probably won't see him until towards the end of the year if we see him at all. But he is an arbitration guy, about $2.7 million. And I do think that he sticks around because he could be a very valuable arm for this team in the future. Next highest dollar ARB guy, probably the biggest talking point here, Nolan Jones, projected to make $2 million. If it were me, if Dan was the uh, baseball operations person for the Cleveland Guardians, Nolan Jones would be a non-tender candidate for this team. They wouldn't even tender him a contract. However, the Cleveland Guardians played Nolan Jones all year until he got injured in September. He was playing, not just on the roster, but actively playing in games. It reminds me of what they did with Brian Rocchio in 2024, where he wasn't playing well, but he stayed on the roster and was the everyday shortstop throughout the season. Rocchio ended up on this, different situation because Rocchio wasn't arbitration eligible yet, but the way they handled them just feels very similar to me. And Rocchio was on the major league roster to start this year, ended up going down to the minors, ended up coming back playing decently. But Jones, to me, the way they've treated them is very, very similar. And for whatever reason, they seem to favor him. They still think that they can unlock the power potential that he has. I'm not convinced that they'll outright him or they'll non-tender him. I think it would be a serious mistake to have him on the 26 man to start the year. However, he is also out of options. So he is either on the 26 man or he's not on your roster at all, unless you think he can get through waivers, which probably he could. So um, a lot to be determined there. My reaction is non-tender him. Why are you spending $2 million on this guy who's had multiple chances at this point? And you've got DeLauder, Valera, um, other options there that could be having those at bats.
Unless you think he's a plus defender in the outfield everywhere.
And he's not.
Yeah,
He's got a fantastic arm, but he's not a good feel as far as fielding the ball. He's average at best.
I think they
Um,
should not. I'm with you. I don't. He seems like a wasted roster spot unless you have a roster crunch, or like I don't feel like the Guardians have a 40-man roster crunch. So like maybe he stays on the 40-man roster because like I mean, $2 million is what, not even 3 times the league minimum. So like you already are gonna spend 820,000 on that roster spot. You're only spending 1.2 million above that. What are they going to do with that extra $1.2 million somewhere else? Like, I don't know. Unless you're going to find a what? That's
to
a
me,
bargain bin reliever,
it's more the opportunity cost
right?
of he's holding a spot that somebody else could be using. That I think we've seen enough Nolan Jones at this point
But I
to
guess that's
know.
my point. Unless he is like, unless the Guardians have a real 40-man roster crunch. Like if they have, I mean, if he's the 36th best player, and like you don't need to add someone for the Rule 5 draft or anything like
Yeah,
that, he might
I
just
guess
stick around.
maybe you could tender him a contract, have him hang out, and then if a better situation comes up, then you just DFA him and see if he clears waivers or not.
Or
Because
somebody
I
gets
mean,
injured for 3 weeks to start the year. Like there's value to maybe keeping, but I'm with you. Like I would non tender him and just move on.
but I
But
guess I'm slightly being talked into like just hang on to him. And the worst thing that happens is you DFA him, and maybe he comes back to you anyway because who's going to really claim
right.
him in the first place?
Well,
So
keep in mind, almost every team, like 3 days before opening day, will waive all of their when
that's
they
how they got him in the first place. They traded for Tyler Freeman, who was out of options for Nolan Jones. They were trying to kind of trade each other's guys that they weren't necessarily thrilled with having to send through waivers. Um, Kobe Allard is next. Relief pitcher, $1.9 million is his projection. Allard had a pretty good year as kind of not a back end of the bullpen, a guy that they would use in mop up, but also pitched very prominently in some eighth innings and pitched well for the Guardians at points in time. Bit of a surprise, kind of similar to Lively, but out of the bullpen. Um, this is kind of a similar conversation as Jones, but I feel less strongly about it. Do you just bring him back? You need arms, and you pay him 1.9 million, or do you go? We got all these young guys. Why don't we just pay a guy 820, the league minimum instead? I don't think the Guardians necessarily have the bullpen depth at this point in time due to injuries. I think Allard ends up getting paid out the 1.9 and he's on the roster for 2026. And I think he could fill the same role pretty well again. There is some consideration to maybe that this was a bit of an aberration and he won't be that good moving forward, but I think he earned the opportunity to run it back.
I think that's fair. I'm the Guardian, so I would believe that I can probably turn anyone into a functioning reliever, or like I can get much more out of a like I don't know, like a fringe major league pitcher. But yeah, I'm. What are you going to spend that $1.1 million on? That might be better than Colby Allard.
You might as well just keep him.
Um, Next one is Sam Henches, $1.3375 million. We'll be quick on him. You're not going to see much of him. He's also injured. He's in the category with Ben Lively, where he's going to need to come back from injury. But Hedges is a big, tall left-hander that they put in the bullpen and looked pretty good at times. Um, there's
OOTP.
no reason. What's that?
OOTP really likes him. 60
He's
grade
got
reliever.
he's
How
got
much did he?
superb stuff.
How much did he play this year at all, if at all? Because I feel like
He,
I've never heard of this man before today.
this past year, I think he was injured for most, if not the entirety of the season, but
Okay.
he's pitched in previous years out of the bullpen and been very effective.
Gotcha, because
Stand
I,
by.
I just see this guy listed for $2 million next year, and I'm like, where did he come from? Because I didn't
So, he did not pitch at
remember.
all in 2025 in the majors, but he did
Oh wow.
pitch. Uh, he's pitched 206 innings as a major leaguer. Um, and the last two seasons that he did pitch, 52 innings in 2023, 361 ERA, 23 innings in 2024, 304 ERA. So, effective left-handed reliever, really good stuff. And we'll see him when we see him, but there's no reason to not tender him a contract, is the point. Um, moving off of him, a couple other guys that I'll try to hit a little bit more quickly here, potentially. Uh, David Fry, another guy in that same box. I don't know that we'll see him at the start of I don't know what's going to happen with David Fry. I don't know what kind of mental state he's going to be in. I don't know what his situation is as far as getting ramped back up to playing in Major League Baseball. It's really kind of frustrating. I think very highly of David Fry. I think he is potentially an everyday player. A lot more people, I think he's a platoon hitter against left-handed pitching. I think I saw enough where I think at least he's afforded himself the opportunity to play every day. And by the way, he could catch, he could play first, he could play either corner outfield position. He could even play third a little bit if he needed him to. He's incredibly valuable because of all the different positions he can play and hit at a fairly high level. Um, but he had Tommy John surgery last offseason, spent the whole year ramping back up, could only DH. And really that limited his value, how valuable he was. The Guardians did all that legwork to get him back up so that hopefully 2026 we could be rolling day one. And then he gets hit in the face by a fastball at 98 miles an hour from Tarek Skubal. And now I don't know what's going to happen. He'll be on the roster. He'll be tendered a contract. He'll be on the 40 man. I don't know if he'll be on the opening day roster or not. But 1 2
That
million his
surprised me.
RFA.
And maybe this is just comparatively, but like he's a good hit. Like he's a good player, and to me, like one of the not one of the few, but like when you think of Cleveland, you think of disappointing offense. He's a good offensive player, like
Yeah.
that can play multiple. I thought he'd be a no-brainer as like a regular, and not having him really hurt them in like the playoffs. But
It
Let
feels like
me let
he's
me put it
one of the
this
better
way.
players that
If he's healthy and physically ready on opening day, he'll be on the 26 man roster. I'm more worried about kind of the ancillary stuff. That's
sure,
my concern. And his capability of being able to. The other component there is he needs to be able to play the field. He needs to be
right.
able to play the
yeah, he's not a good enough hitter to be a DH
field. Agreed.
or
He
first
is a good
baseman.
hitter, but just to do those things, we need more. He's incredibly more valuable if he's able to play other positions. Two more guys. Matt Festa, who is, I don't know if you guys have Eric, every relief pitcher is somebody that's probably in this category for you. But there's one guy in the bullpen that fans just beat up on because they needed somebody to beat up on. That was Matt Festa this year. I think Matt Festa got a really bad rap. His peripheral numbers were significantly better than his real life numbers, and he was a workhorse, man. He would throw, 3 days in a row. He'd throw multiple innings if needed. Um, Vogt leaned on him heavily all year, and that's why I was so disappointed that he didn't get used at all, and we rolled Hunter Gaddis out for a third day in a row during the playoff series. Um, I think he's another guy that kind of earned his opportunity to be on the 2026 roster. $1 million is
Yeah,
his number for ARB. He'll be. I don't see a reason why he wouldn't be.
Yeah, I feel like he's
Last
good
guy,
enough that you can just keep him on the roster. I mean, it's not
yeah.
like he's taking away space from somebody
There
else.
there are a lot of fans out there that would disagree with that. They didn't like him. They didn't like the outcomes that they saw. But he'll be on the roster, I think.
Yeah,
Lastly, because
sorry, I really like your description of that one guy who everyone just.
Cleveland, I don't know if that's a phenomenon
No,
everywhere
you're
else, but
totally right
yeah.
Cleveland
though.
always has a guy. It was Brian Shaw for a really long time. It's been one of the things a segment I plan on doing for my writing website is talking about those guys and if they were really as bad as people thought they were.
For the
Last guy,
Tigers, it was either Canely or Holton.
Yeah.
It kind of depended on the day.
Holton's good. I don't get that one, but
He wasn't as good as he was last year or the year before that. Is the
yeah.
thing.
Right.
He had
I
a
mean,
lot of back and forth. It was a
it's
he
one
gave
of
up
those
so many
like
home runs.
talking about Festa or Holton or like the yes, I can name multiple twins, but Griffin Jackson's as an example. People's emotional reaction to like relievers are just combustible anyway, like whether they're short term or long term. Like you don't expect a good reliever to last more than 3 or 4 years, and that's even for one of the better ones. People get when you lose so many late leads or you give up 2 or 3 late leads in a row or like in a short amount of time, the emotional response to Matt Festa is going to last longer than his bad results, I guess. And it's very hard for people to see that going into the next year because they're just going to
It's
remember.
like
They don't remember the
it's
good
like
ones
umpires.
where they just comes in
An
and holds
umpire
it.
an umpire can make 97 out of 100 good calls, and that's great. But you're going to remember the three that weren't good, and you're especially going to remember them if they happen in a big moment.
Right.
I
Yeah,
think it's
I
the same
mean,
thing with relief pitchers. When Matt Festa had a 1, 2, 3, sixth inning 10 times, nobody's going to remember that, but they're going to remember the one time that he blew a 2-run lead in the
Or even that
seventh.
it's probably even the case where that they're the same fan base. We're like, ooh, he finally had a 1, 2, 3 inning. Good job, Matt. Like it's almost
Yeah,
like a sarcastic good job rather than a
yeah.
genuine one.
I've got one more ARB guy. It's Will Brennan. He had Tommy John surgery as well this year, and I don't know that when we'll see him. He's going to make $900,000. He's going to be on the roster, and I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. He's the way I've described Will Brennan before. We were talking about Quan earlier. He's like Quan, but not as good. Is the way I think of Will Brennan. Good glove, not quite as good of a glove. Good contact hitter, not as good of a contact hitter. He'll be on the roster just for the chance to see what he might be able to do in the future. Other items I wanted to hit in terms of contracts before I move off of this. I just named a bunch of ARB guys. I named a couple free agent guys. Everybody else is in the first 3 years of their deal. The Guardians have touted one of the youngest teams in the sport for several years now, dating back to 2022. Carlos Santana kind of hurt the curve on that last year, but generally speaking, 29 of the mock 40 man I put together, 29 of the 40 guys are on their league minimum first 3 year deals. Um, Additionally, a couple things I'll shout out, maybe not pictured on the OOTP. They do have a $3.5 million commitment to Trevor Stephan, who was a relief pitcher that was on this team for several years. Had Tommy John surgery in 2024. Tried to ramp up back up in 2025, and I was actually personally hoping would help bolster this bullpen, and he was just not effective when he was getting ramped back up. And I don't know that we'll ever see him again, quite frankly. He might be, Tommy John failure stories don't happen nearly as often as they used to. I hate to say it, he might be one of them. And that's a shame because he was a relief pitcher that pitched seventh and eighth innings for this team a few years ago, pitched in prominent playoff games, and they gave an extension to, and that looks like it might go south. So they are on the hook for his $3.5 million commitment. And then similarly, but not similarly, John Means was signed to a 1 year deal with a club option for 2026. The Guardians could pick up his club option. It would be a $6 million option. Most places you'd say you need arms. Why wouldn't you pick up a $6 million option? With the budget the Guardians run, I think that's a little less certain. But there is the opportunity there to extend your starting rotation, have another depth arm from a guy that used to be the Orioles ace at one point in time. So I could see that going either way. I lean towards not having him on the roster, but um, I think it's reasonable either way. That I think takes us to. I kind of want to do what Eric did, where can we just look at the pitchers for a moment? The pitcher
Absolutely.
screen.
I jumped the gun. I went one second. I got to go back to the pitching screen. But yes,
Let's go with the pitchers. So the one thing we didn't do, Eric, is we didn't kind of set up the rotation and all that, but that's
no,
okay.
I
Um,
tried.
there,
For some reason, OOTP really wants to put Daniel Espino in in that rotation.
and maybe he can be a talking point here in a moment, but I believe the Guardians rotation would be in some form or fashion here. Gavin Williams, I think, has done enough to kind of be talked about as the ace of the staff at this point in time. Tanner Bybee is a really good number 2. I really, really, really like Joey Cantillo. I think he has great stuff, great curveball, great changeup to go with a strong fastball, 3 good pitches. Um, he was phenomenal down the stretch, and his peripherals are really good. So I think he has the potential to be the number 3 starter on this team. I don't think he's necessarily the consensus pick for that, but my opinion, I have him as the 3. Alternatively, I don't have a very good outlook on Slade Ciccone. Um, if there was a starting pitcher if you wanted to trade from depth on this team and you have an abundance of pitching to trade from, Slade Ciccone is the guy I would be shopping. He has a prospect pedigree. His numbers ultimately weren't that bad this year, and I think pitching is valuable. I think you get something good for him, but uh, he had some really good starts that I think were smoke and mirrors. He pitched, 8 innings plus in a game where he struck out like 2 guys, and I think it was just a lot of they hit atom balls, and he was able to kind of dance his way through, those types of outings multiple times across the course of the season. I don't. He's either really good at inducing weak contact, and I'm off base on this, or I think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors with him. So that's where I'm at with
He
Ciccone.
wouldn't just be a good reliever.
There's an argument to be made there where maybe you put him in a relief role and go throw hard for an inning Slade and see what we get out of that. They did
I
that
think
with
he's.
Gaddis, and that worked
I
out
think.
swimmingly.
I think he's too much of a fly ball guy to really be a very effective reliever. Because I feel like he was
But
gonna get the
and that's
ball
a
on
good
home
point. I'm
runs.
thinking more of it of the standpoint of we need to do things to improve this offense. Trading Ciccone in order to get offense to me feels like a move that could be made. Again, I think the places where I most deviate from consensus on the starting rotation are Cantillo and Ciccone. So take that with what it is, but that's what Dan would do. Parker Messick and Logan Allen round out the starting rotation, in my opinion. Messick looked fantastic um, down the stretch as well. I forget the exact stat, but he had given up like 1 home run in his first 6 starts, something to that effect. And then he gave up like 3 against the Tigers in those final series of the year. But he looked really good. And then I think Logan Allen's a 5 starter in this league. That's what he is at this point in time, and there's nothing wrong with that. You need those guys. And so I think he's a good 5 starter, and I'd be happy to have him penciled in that role for 2026. Um, that brings us to the bullpen. And I think the back end of it's going to look very, very similar. There is one caveat here that could get really interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
let's talk about that elephant staring you right in the
well,
face right
there's 2 of them really, because there's the elephant itself and then the outcome of that elephant. So we are operating under the assumption that Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz will not be on this roster moving forward. I think there's a 0.1% chance that that's not true, but I think there's a 99.9% chance that it is true. I don't expect to hear anything until. Would it shock anybody else if they like the Friday of Thanksgiving that announcement comes out? Like you wait until after the World Series, you wait until after the awards are announced. The
they're
Friday between the holiday when a bunch
gonna
of
wait for
football
us
is
to be
going
passed
on.
out on turkey
Yeah,
to look at it.
I think that's how that's going to go. And a lot of
Yeah.
people have been like, the league has to tell the Guardian. Like the Guardians are planning their year, and they're
Yeah.
planning to not have those guys at this point
Did
in
you see
time.
the thing about how they're not being allowed to pitch in the Dominican League or
Yeah.
whatever it was?
Very interestingly, what I've heard about that is the Dominican League and Major League Baseball recently put an agreement together to allow for more major league players to play in those leagues if they so desire. They've kind of lessened the restrictions. And it seems like a little bit of a wink wink nudge nudge deal. And in order to allow that was don't let these 2 guys play in your and
Mm.
that's not anything that was said. That's not public. I'm speculating, but it sure seems like maybe that was part of the calculus there.
Oh,
All that
sports
being said,
gambling stuff has come up more again.
It's been a rough week for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
To
Was
say the
it
least.
gambling when you're just well? I guess it is gambling when you're playing poker in a mob boss's house. Is that still gambling?
Not when you're doing it with a fixed card shuffler, shuffling machine. But the other component of that is pretty nasty though, where apparently the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers was leaking information about who was injured and who wasn't. That wasn't public yet. So um, that's a different podcast for a different place.
I blame his years in
Y-
Detroit. That's what really put him down there. Chauncey Billups. Just
no,
he was a good kid
Detroit
until then.
Pistons. I didn't even put that together. Yes,
Yeah.
um, but the other half of the Class A thing is Pete Smith had to go from being arguably the best fireman in the league, throw him in there in the with runners on and one out and have him get out of it, to having to be the closer. Um, and I don't know if that's the best role for him. Like his best, it was the best thing for the Guardians at that point in time. I think you get the most value out of him in that fireman role because he's such a great strikeout guy.
Hmm.
But for the moment, he is the closer on this team. Moving off of that, the back end is going to look very similar, I think, next year. Hunter Gaddis, uh, one of the best eighth inning guys in the league, in my opinion. Eric Sabrowski had a very good year coming off of Tommy John surgery, had a strong second half. I think he'll be, either a seventh inning guy or like the guy to get lefties out in general. Um, Talked about Festa already. He'll be there. Um, and then from there, I have Saccone penciled into the bullpen at this point in time, but again, I think he's great trade bait. Zach Kent, I think at the moment is just there because he saw major league action this year and is a guy that it can come up from the minors and give you some innings. I think, preferably you're adding a relief pitcher this year. The last 2 years, the Guardians have actually spent a little bit on relievers, and it hasn't gone too well. In 2024, they got Scott Barlow. In
Hmm.
2025, they got Paul Sewald. They paid both of them about $7 million. And in both cases, it didn't really work out. Barlow at least was healthy and pitched out most of the year, but he ended up getting DFA'd in August because they had better internal options. Sewald was just hurt for most of the time and then got traded to Detroit because he wasn't going to be. They were paying him $7 million to be hurt, and or they thought they weren't going to make the playoffs. The Guardians, that
So
is.
instead, the Tigers paid him whatever was left
Yeah,
in his contract to be hurt and do
indeed.
nothing.
All that's to say that Kent I have penciled in, but there could be other options there if they look externally. That is the pitching. Unless there's any comments, let's look at the offense.
No, I
So
do
we've
think
talked
it's.
about,
I just have one. Their entire
yeah,
pitching staff is like less than $20 million.
yes, sir.
Like,
That's a great point. You've got Bybee who's going to make 4.4, and then you've got Allard and Festa who are the two ARB guys that I think, Festa's a lock and Allard probably going to be there.
just I mean that you can't get more flexible than when you're
And by
starting.
the way, it's the strength of the team.
I was about to say,
And
and it's the strength of the team. Like you can reallocate some money if that is, especially like when you're the freaking Guardians and you can just crap out a middle reliever. Anyway, I'm not bitter.
oh, before we move off, let's talk about Espino for a minute. Um, just real quick. Daniel Espino is a former number one prospect in this organization, topped out at 100 miles an hour, right-handed pitcher. Looked like he was potentially the future of this team, and he's been consistently injured year after year after year. He is finally healthy. He is pitching in the Arizona Fall League. He is throwing 100 miles an hour. I don't think he'll ever be the ace starting pitcher that uh, he was once projected to be. I do think there's a world where he's a very good relief pitcher for this Guardians team. So when I talk about, you know, um, other options in the bullpen, I don't think you'll see him on opening day. But there's a world where the Guardians, down the stretch, add Daniel Espino to the roster, and he's throwing fire. Hopefully in the lead up to a October run.
That would
Um,
be such a Cleveland thing to do is to get rid of Class or to have to force get rid of Class A and then just bring up Espino and you almost like it's a high bar. I don't want to put that on Mr. Espino here, but like, if you can throw 100 as a starter, you can probably throw like 102. You can pump it up to 102, 103 maybe.
And hopefully you avoid injury a little bit more that way. He's really the other kind of guy that's looming in the minors as far as pitching goes. Franco Aliman is also a reliever that didn't have a very good 2025, but could contribute as well. Now we can go to the offense. So we've talked about how the Royals have some very obvious holes, and they can fill those holes, and their offense automatically should be, in theory, significantly better. For the Guardians, there are a bunch of holes, but they're young dudes, and you can kind of squint your eyes and go, well, maybe that guy will get better. Maybe that's not the hole we need to fill. Maybe actually that's the hole over there.
Yeah.
So it's similar, but I feel like more complicated than the Royals situation.
Yeah,
Um,
because you have obvious holes outfield, right? But you got all these young guys that could be in the outfield. So hold on,
Precisely.
Tigers have the same problem.
Let's start there. I think that's a good place to start. Juan's the left fielder. He's going to be the left fielder, period. He's a fantastic left fielder. He can hit at the top of the lineup. Like I've talked about, you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of him offensively, but that's a sure thing. Like that's happening. I'm going to go to the other corner first. This is where Nolan Jones played a lot of last year. John Kenzie Noel fell on his face, honestly, in 2025 after having a very good 2024 where he was a contributor to the offense that looked 2024's offense was significantly better. That's why they won 93 games and you know started to walk away with the division at the end of the year.
It's true.
It's
I don't
true.
know. It took me.
It's true.
It caught me. I just thought like
It was
I can't
competitive
see
most of
Lee's
the way.
reaction, but I'm only imagine just like festering, like brooding right now when you said that.
I'm
It,
too
it was.
tired to
I
have
was talking about
reaction.
24, and that was the way it was close most of the way, and then the Guardians kind of walked away with it at the end. Um, there's some, is Noel going to bounce back? I think there's a lot of evidence there that the flaws in his swing are what they are, and they can be exploited, and maybe not. Maybe he won't come back, but the power potential is such that you at least got to give him that opportunity, I feel like. And so he'll be on the roster.
Yeah.
Um, More prominently, you had two guys come up at the end of the year, one of which didn't play in a major league game before the playoffs, but two guys who looked pretty good. Two highly touted prospects. Valera is another guy that was once highly touted and had a bunch of injuries. He finally got his opportunity at the end of the season and looked like a major league hitter. He's not the best fielder, but he looked like a
Oh,
major
really?
league hitter. And this team is devoid of guys that look like major league hitters. Um, so George Valera has the potential to be the everyday right fielder for this team. So does Chase DeLauter. Chase DeLauter most prominently played in the playoffs, never played in a major league game before he was rolled out to play center field in game 2 of the AL wildcard series after not having played for multiple months because he was injured. Um, I'm going to use that to say that, him dropping the first fly ball that went to him in center field isn't all on him. I've said it on the show a bunch of times, though. I don't think Chase DeLauter is a center fielder in the major leagues. Particularly for a team that tries to get the most out of run prevention, I don't think that's a winning combination. That doesn't mean the Guardians won't do it. They very well might. But in my opinion, him and Valera should be competing for right field. And I think there's value in having those young guys, not handing it to those young guys because you don't have any other options. Have them compete against each other and see what you get. Angel Martinez is penciled in as the center fielder. I emphasize penciled in because, in my opinion, he's the only center fielder on the roster because of what I just said about DeLauter. Um, Daniel Schneemann could also be out there. I don't have Daniel Schneemann on my 26 man that I put together, but I think him and Martinez are basically competing for a spot. And that spot is weird because it's part starting center fielder and part utility guy. Like it could be either of those roles. But those two guys are competing for that role, and I give the edge right now to Martinez, but I could be talking to either. Um, Out infield, Jose Ramirez is the third baseman uh, for for now and forever, and that is what it is. The middle infield gets a little interesting. I think this is an opportunity, one of the places where I think this team could get better. I've talked about kind of competition. I think having Gabriel Arias and Brian Rocchio potentially compete against each other for a role and having one of those guys get rewarded is probably a better scenario here. There's also the opportunity for a guy named Juan Brito, who is kind of a guy without a position. Good eye at the plate. He's a prospect. Good eye at the plate. Another guy that kind of could be offensively productive in the same way as Valera. We probably would have seen him this year, but he was on and off the IL for most of the year. And really, it was a lost year for him when he was a guy that was being talked about at the start of 2025 as somebody who would be on the roster in 2025 and contributing. Instead, they kind of had to default to Arias and Rocchio. Both of those guys had their moments, but I think adding in an outside addition plus having those guys all kind of compete amongst themselves would be interesting. Ultimately, I landed on Arias at short and Rocchio here at second because those are the incumbents. That's the main reason. CJ Kafis is placed at first. I don't think Kyle Manzardo is an everyday first baseman. I just don't think he's defensively skilled enough for that. When you have somebody like Kafis, who I think is a significantly better first baseman, Kafis looked good when he came up in July. He was tearing the cover off the ball in AAA and earned that opportunity to get to the majors. And I think it's his position to kind of to own until somebody kind of supplants him. This is
So
another place. No, go ahead.
what role do you think Manzardo has going forward here?
DH most days, first base to give Kafis a breather. And I think he won't face every lefty, but I think he can face most lefties. I think he gets a day off when you're facing Tarek Skubal or your top tier lefties. But I think he's shown enough where um, you don't need to take him out of the lineup just because you're facing team's fifth starter who happens to throw with his left hand, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, then no, that makes sense.
Um, it's another spot where you can mix in Noel at first, um, despite internal debates we've had on this show about whether or not he's a good first baseman or not, or if he makes plays that are indefensible and not to make or not. But I think that's another place he could find at bats. And then the other place where I think this team can improve, up the middle is where this team can improve. Center field, short, second, and then potentially catcher. Bo Naylor is the catcher at the moment. Bo Naylor had a really great September. I've said that about a bunch of players. This team played really well in September. You would expect that. But Naylor made a mechanical change in his swing that might be the difference. And so he's another one of those guys that I allude to. You can kind of squint your eyes and go, well, could there be something more there that we just haven't seen yet? That being said, Austin Hedges is the backup. This team is at its best when it can utilize David Fry as a catcher. So the ultimate goal here is not for him to start every day at catcher, but start a couple days at catcher, start a day at first, start a day in right field, start a day in DH. So the other thing is Fry being on this roster allows for a lot more being able to pinch hit because there were games 2 years ago where Fry would start a game at first, play the first 7 innings at first, then a pinch hit situation would happen. He'd go to right field. And then another pinch hit situation happened the next inning. He'd go to catcher. Um, that helps the versatility a lot. But one other name I'll allude to for catcher, Cooper Ingle, is a catcher in the minors who looked very good last year. And I wouldn't expect to see opening day, but if things don't go well with Naylor, if Fry is hurt, um, you could see Cooper Ingle in 2026 as well. And then the one guy I didn't mention is Travis Bazzana. I don't expect to see him. If we see him, it'll be towards the end of the year, in my opinion. And it'll be because Rocchio, Arias, Brito kind of didn't put it together. Um, that is the roster. I do want to talk about one more thing,
Yeah.
if I may. So we total up our salary for the team. And what OOTP got and what I got were slightly off, but they're about the same. They're about 67 to 68 million dollars. The Guardians, over the course of the last 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, somewhere in there, consistently run a payroll of about $100 million. Sometimes it's 97, sometimes it's 105. It's usually around $100 million. The ownership situation is not changing yet. The Dolans are still in charge of this team and will be making the budget. I don't expect that to change so much.
Mhm.
So $100 million minus 67, that's $33 million to play with. Eric, what is the scariest thing in this division?
The Guardians with money to spend.
You usually say it's the Guardians with $50 million to spend.
Yeah.
This is the second scariest thing, the Guardians with two-thirds of that to spend.
Yeah. It's
Um,
scary. I'm glad because like I was paying attention to you, but I looked up some free agents and
so
some
did
of
I.
the up the. Oh, okay, good. You go with yours. Let's see. I have three
So
names that I think would look
there's
really good.
there's two things here. There's levels to this. Like there's been some the local talk about, well, what if the Guardians signed Pete Alonso? I want to. You can wish cast that. That's great. That's fantastic. I I recognize it's less fun to talk about the second tier names, but I'm kind of basing this in more of a reality of second tier names. Um, and maybe I'm even underselling this. So if you guys, Eric, if you have other names, I might be interested here in a minute.
No, one thing
This guy,
I will say like the Twins were also the second category name tier until they signed Correa. So like the impossible can happen. They've spent money. They have money to do. It's just what strategy. You have 33 million to spend. Do you
yeah,
buy the one nice thing or a couple nice,
The
okay.
and
Tigers
there's
are
arguments.
also a second tier. I was literally just thinking second tier
Yeah.
This is the
name.
AL Central rundown, baby. This is what we deal in. This is what we have
We
to
do.
deal
Well, we're
with.
not
You
gonna
don't
get the
look
Um,
at the
top tier
top.
guys.
You look at
Here were
just
the
that way.
best.
These are pretty good. It's not the
because
best, but they're pretty
These
because
are
good.
the
quite
best
frankly,
above average players that we'll probably
I
could
don't.
offer money to and maybe get.
Because I'll do one real quick. I'm not super jazzed with Pete Alonso. I think we have other first base options. But how good would the Guardians look with Kyle Tucker in right field?
I thought Tucker was one.
Ooh.
So I'm looking at
Hitting
Sport Track.
fourth, hitting behind Ramirez and playing right field every day.
I have another name for you that's close. So Kyle Tucker's value. So like they compare WAR versus whatever one win above replacement is like $8-9 million consistently. I'm looking at Sport Track, which is a very very good website. If you want to just payroll, they can really dig into it. Kyle Tucker had, if you just do his WAR, it was around 40. His value was $40 million, which is probably what he's going to be looking for on an average value. Can I suggest another name that was around that 30 million mark?
Please.
Cody Bellinger.
He can
Definitely.
play
Cody
center field.
Bellinger is the guy that I
Guys,
want the Tigers to sign for a 1-year deal.
he can play center field.
He can play center field. Do you know another? So I thought of Bellinger. He's a bit of a risk. He can be very up and down. So like, do I
Yes.
want a 5-year deal of Cody Bellinger? Probably
One
not.
thing, there's one name on my list that I have in parentheses because he's actually a stay away from candidate for me. He's a Yankee. He plays center field. Had a great year. Trent Grisham. I am
Yeah.
not touching that dude with a 10-foot pole. That guy hit 30 home runs for the first time in his life, and it's because he was playing in Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
What made me think of that was Bellinger also played in Yankee Stadium, so maybe his numbers are inflated a little bit too. Bellinger has more of a track record.
I was saying,
Grisham
Bellinger
does play a
also, he had a good. So even like, yes, he came up really well. Like he came out hot with the Dodgers, struggled for a couple of years, had a good year with the Cubs, had an okay year with the Cubs, had a good year with the Yankees. Like
Mhm.
you don't know what you're getting.
There's more there.
Yeah, I got
There's
some
more,
news
but
for you on Cody
there's enough
Bellinger.
consistency there where even Bellinger's bad year, he'd still probably be like the third best hitter.
Solid. Yes.
Okay, I got Cody
Then you
Bellinger's spray chart is all home runs, all on that right field side.
Yep.
Sure.
So he got
Who
some
is
deep ones. They're not all wall scrapers, but you put them in a real field, it's like half
yeah?
probably.
Do you know a
Did you have
name?
another name or was
I
that
did. That I like the more I see it is Bo Bichette.
he's on my list too? I think he's just going to be too expensive.
27. He will be more expensive, but like he
I
does
know
seem.
I know for a fact that I think I forget what year it was. but I recall that the Guardians were in when the Toronto wasn't sure what they were doing. They were potentially shopping guys a couple years ago. The Guardians talked about Bo Bichette with the Blue Jays,
Mhm.
so I know they like him. He would shortstop would be something that they need. I would love Bo Bichette to be on this roster.
A friend of mine really wants the
Yeah.
Tigers to trade for Bo Bichette next
Yeah.
year. For
He'd
next
be a
year.
good fit in Detroit as well.
Yeah.
I think he's probably too much. There's probably too much cost there. I just don't
Is he
know.
going to be more than 30 million AAV though? Because I feel like I
For
don't think that's his
shortstop,
ceiling.
what did Correa get?
Correa was 36, but he was
So
he was
Bichette's
an
going to make
elite
more, is my
defender though.
point.
He
I think Bichette will make more than Correa.
on an annual basis or total value.
That's a good point.
Because I feel like you're looking at the 33
Well,
million.
you know what? I'll tell you right now, if Bichette's going to get a 10-year deal, he's not coming to Cleveland.
Sure.
They're not going to do that.
And there's wish casting, so also there
But
was a
but
catch.
I like those names. Bellinger, Tucker, Bichette was on my list as well. Those are guys that like, wow, that'd be phenomenal. And that's where like you put all your chips on one guy. And I think the Guardians have spent in the past where they've kind of maybe played in the third tier, and it
Yeah.
hasn't gone very well. So
I
now that
mean,
we've had our fun, here's some names I came up with that might be a little bit more underwhelming but realistic. This guy is an all-star. This guy is a friend of the AL Central. This guy is very familiar to at least one of you, maybe both of you. Willie Castro
I just saw his name. I was about to say,
Oh,
give yes, like all right, good, all right, I like
played
that.
multiple positions,
Yep,
decent hitter, former All-Star.
he would be
He's
a
a
good
fit
fit
for
for you
me.
guys.
He'd be
was
a good fit.
terrible for Chicago, but I agree. He is a good he seems like a Cleveland player.
I miss
Yeah.
when we thought he was going to be really good. That was a fun 3 months of COVID
I, I
baseball.
really like that one. Similar player, well, semi-similar player. I feel less strongly about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
Yeah,
Um, Good defensive player would be, not going to hurt himself offensively. Like he'd be an upgrade to a point.
I'd like him as like a super utility guy. I don't. I
Yeah.
want him in three. I want him with 300 at bats, not 500.
He's the kind of guy that would compete with, but not necessarily run away with Arias and Rocchio and Brito. Like he'd compete with those guys. Um, I didn't see much in the way of catchers. I did write down Victor Carantini. Um, yeah, underrated hitter, but not going to really blow anybody away. One more outfielder, another guy that's a recent friend of the AL Central, Mike Yastrzemski.
Yep.
Mm.
I think would be very interesting here in Cleveland. Played very well for the Royals down the stretch. Played decent right field. OPS in the high 700s, hopefully, and again would be an upgrade just off of those. Not doesn't solve the center fielder problem, but at least could help legitimize an offense. The other thing I looked at was I talked about Cade Smith earlier, maybe being better in the fireman role. How good is the Guardians bullpen if they add, say, Ryan Helsley or Devin Williams or even like Kenley Jansen, who I know is older and maybe kind of on the back end of things, but like any of those guys, you throw them in as like guys with a history of closing. You move Cade Smith back to his kind of more traditional role. The bullpen just got a little bit deeper, and then you still maybe find one more guy, but
I'm I'm not saying that you can't. So like to me, if I'm Cleveland, I can develop a bullpen like almost in my sleep at this point.
but
I
like I said, I don't think the depth is there right now. I think maybe the argument you can make is you don't need to spend big on relievers. You can find guy. Maybe that's where you're headed. Is
go
like,
find a Danny Coulomb for 2 million,
yeah,
3 million.
Colby Allard.
Yes.
You want maybe a more prominent role than Allard pitched in, but like I get your point.
I have a couple more names that I just want that I'm thinking of looking at. One I think you're gonna like a lot because you've talked about him, and another I think you're gonna like poo poo a little bit. But Jorge Polanco
I
would
So on my website last year, I wrote about I wanted the Guardians to bring in Jorge Polanco last year, and they didn't, and he
he
played a very prominent role for Seattle.
his value
I don't
I do not want on the
was
Guardians.
14 million,
I
and then
I I don't know that he's good enough defensively. Like, I don't know if he fits defensively. I don't know. I do
He's
think
getting old.
I didn't do a good job of kind of explaining Burrito. I think Polanco's a good example of what Burrito could be if Burrito works out.
I also think you
Sorry,
can
go ahead.
get Polanco on a 2 year deal, or like a one with a team option, or something like that, for like less than 10 million.
He played well enough where he'll earn a decent contract. But you're right. I don't think he's getting hundreds of millions in dozens of years. So I got you.
I'm looking at his contract because I know he's got one more year, but I think it's a buy it's a
It's a player
mutual
option for
option.
8 million.
Player
He's
option.
going to opt
I
out.
see. Okay, yeah. No,
Yeah, agreed.
I knew he had one more year and I didn't know the details of it, so I was trying to
Yeah.
find that.
What's the other name?
Graber Torres.
Another. Now they talked to Glaber last year.
I didn't know that.
I don't want to do a long-term deal with Glaber, and he's going to get a long-term deal. Um,
That's what
no,
he's
don't get me
going
wrong.
for.
If they
Yeah.
signed him, I'd be excited to have more offense on the team, but I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I feel like
And
he
then
would
just
fit well with your style of play already. Because I mean, if
I
we're
don't
assuming
agree.
that his,
I don't agree.
I
And
mean, not maybe not on the defense part, but like he
he's a
has a
sloppy
really good
defender.
strikeout to walk ratio. His defense improved
Offensively, I
this
get it.
year. His defense improved a lot. I feel like you could work with him, and he worked a lot
And
with the Tigers infield coaches to improve his defense. So like he's not gonna just sit back and be like, I got my bag. I'm not gonna work on my defense anymore because I don't give a fuck anymore. But
that's a good point. And on this show, I gave him kind of a bad. I I spoke poorly of him because he wasn't running out balls and stuff like that. Come to find out that he was playing hurt for 2 months.
yeah, he
So
had a
I
hernia. So
I take some of that. I take a lot of that back. That's my bad.
yeah, if
And
you look
because
at
that wasn't public at the time. But
his performance
yeah,
drop, it's really just the past month and a half, and I could be like, oh well, he had a hernia, so
yeah.
I'm gonna give him
So
a pass on that one. Yeah,
but yeah,
Glaber's not
I
really a
think
guy that I'm like really want to re-sign or anything, but like he's a good player.
he's a
He's
good
gonna
ball
get
player.
paid.
So I do
I
think
like
there's
him.
some things that they could do in free agency. I also think trading somebody like Saccone could get them somewhere.
I feel like
I
yeah, you
haven't
have a
done a
lot of
deep
depth there that you could.
I haven't done a deep dive on who they could trade him for. I think Baltimore is an interesting team to potentially work with
Are they
just
gonna give up
because of
any of those young guys though?
exactly. They got so many of them, and that's the kind of player that the Guardians would maybe be looking for is a young, controllable player, and they need pitching in Baltimore. So I think Saccone to Baltimore for question mark, question mark, question mark is an interesting place to look. Among others. Like I said, I haven't dove that deep into it yet. Joe Adele is somebody I think is really interesting though as well, even though he's kind of underwhelmed in LA. So those are
If
the
you
I
had
like
to
him as a
pick,
buy low. I like him with a team that can actually develop players instead of the
yeah,
Angels.
agreed.
if you had
So
to pick one
would
position to fix with a free agent, which position would you
fix with a
prioritize?
free agent specifically.
Yeah, free agent specifically.
Um, do I have to? There is not a center fielder on this roster. I'll keep going back to that. Center field. And I paused because I know center fielders that can hit are expensive. So I was kind of contemplating that for a moment. There is not a center fielder on this roster. If they could go and find, I would maybe pay Cody Bellinger the $30 million.
Yeah.
I would, I could convince myself of that. And then you trade Saccone for a shortstop or something, and this roster suddenly looks not just like a division winner, but maybe somebody who could be fighting with the Seattles and
It pushes the
uh,
ceiling higher.
Bronx. Yeah, at the very minimum. Yeah. If I'm talking too
It
far there,
pushes
if
your
I'm thinking,
floor up too. It pushes your floor,
yeah,
your ceiling up.
absolutely.
Yeah. I think if I was the Guardians, I am targeting Bo Bichette as my number one, Bellinger two, and then I'm looking for like a Jorge Polanco, Lourdes Gurriel style player. If I'm looking for that, my A tier is
Yeah.
Bichette and Bellinger.
We've done the lofty have fun idea. We've done the
Mhm.
kind of the middle ground. Can I do the depressing for a minute here?
Sure.
The Guardians dumped all that salary at the end of the year and played better.
Sure.
their television contract situation remains tenuous. It's going to be slightly better because ESPN is now involved, but they don't have a long-term contract where they're getting RSN money at this point in time. And I think whether you want to believe it's an excuse or not, I think a lot of teams are going to use the impending lockout as a reason to not commit money, not spend. And by the way, that's not just a Guardians thing. I think that's an everybody thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's potential where they don't spend $100 million on this payroll in the way that they have. But to be fair, they have the last however many years. So I do think the more likely thing is they're going to have a little bit of cash to run with here.
Yeah.
But it's in the back of my mind that maybe they won't.
So then who do you think has a higher payroll, the Twins or the Guardians, going into next year?
The Guardians.
There we go.
I think, and no offense, I think I'm
there's-
confident in that.
I am under no illusions that the Twins are competitive
If
or trying or spending anything. So
if I'm the Twins, you were like, why would I spend an extra $40 million just so I can win 78 games instead of 64 or whatever? Like, that's kind of where I'd be with that. I'd rather play these young guys and see what I've got, kind of thing.
yeah, I don't know. I take it. I would if you're
Well,
going to be around the 78, just push a little bit. Like also, we're not asking you Twins fans. We're not asking the poll ads to clearly like spend even league.
is that a
average.
fair representation? Like, am I like,
No, I get it's a different. Like,
am I being dismissive?
no, I think it's valid. I would just if a 60-win team has no hope, a 78-win team has hope. Like you can squeak into the playoffs some years, or at the very least. And I know like when we
Especially
use
now.
OOTP, like the first everyone, if you have a bad team, the first thing is you do is you go bare bones that first year in OOTP, and you spend
Get
like
rid of
crazy after that.
everyone.
The difference between the game and reality is you actually have to watch that 162 games until you want to start investing.
There's also an element of like these are human beings. Like you're not going to get anybody to ever sign with you ever if you just fire sale everybody for real, for real. Like
Oh, who did that? Weird. Is that a bad strategy? It's,
even beyond that, like even deeper than the Twins. But yeah, point.
well, not even nothing. Like if you going, who's going to sign with the Twins again? They signed Josh Donaldson to 4 years, traded him after 2. They signed Carlos Correa to 6 years, traded him after 3. Why, if I'm a free agent, why am I assuming I'm going to be here at the end of this
Yeah.
contract with you? You're just going to ship me off. Like, you know, whatever. I think. I don't know. I think that was kind of fun. Hopefully that was
That was
worth
fun.
it.
I like that.
Do we have anything for the betterment of the group here before we log off?
No, it's not really.
I don't think so. Well, I
much
think
news or anything.
I think we'll probably just end it there. We'll be back probably next week. We'll let people know. Like we'll send something out on Blue Sky or whatever it ends up if we're not going to post something. We're still kind of figuring out the end of the season, but we'll do one of these, whether it's with OOTP or just using the baseball reference. Yes.
Not to do show planning on the show, but I think it would be fun for the four of us to try to do this with the White Sox, or like because we don't have a White Sox representative right now. Like
Yep.
the all AL Central rundown team tries to fix the White Sox. Something to that effect. Like,
You're assuming I won't want to sabotage them. Like,
four idiots that don't know enough about the White Sox try to fix them or something like that.
That would be fun. I would be down for that.
why
Let's
not?
try
Also
and
looking
fix
for
the
a
White Sox.
White Sox person too. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks we have at least someone who's interested in it. But we'll see from there. But I think that'll do it for this show. We'll get this thing posted, and then hopefully you guys thought this was fun. Leave a feedback if you thought this was
I
kind
thought
of
it was fun.
stupid.
I like the visualization for OOTP.
Yeah.
I thought that was very helpful.
So they're not perfect. They really underrated Stephen Kwan, like a 45 overall Stephen Kwan. That's not great, but it's a fun game. If anything, go play that game, I guess. And that's it. We'll talk to you guys later.